Now then, this is a Retro Bear in the gaming pantry with a slightly different video for you today, and this is the much awaited, much promised, like most other things that I tend to say, Mrs. Bear's 3D Blu-ray collection. Yes, I use the word Mrs. Bear because these are all Mrs. Bears. I'm not saying I'm going to stake a claim to them. This is just something that she collects. I promised this video going back over 12 months. I think last time we did the standard Blu-ray film collection, which is again mostly hers. Not all of it's mine, most of it's hers. And this I promised at the time we're going to do the 3D because Mrs. Bear does like a good 3D film. And so and so she's got quite a lot of these. We're going to have to split it across 2 videos. Because I don't think I'll sit here for over an hour watching me showing boxes off. It's a bit silly, We'll try and keep it to a bare minimum, pardon the pun. So we'll do half in this video and then the other half in the next, because she has a grand total of 104 3D Blu-ray films. Now, how did she get into 3D? I don't know. She's always been fascinated by it. But I think when 3D came back into the cinema a number of years ago, she went to see Avatar, and I think probably the first Star Trek, maybe, or the second one, I don't know. The remake films of Star Trek, there's Star Trek Beyond, wasn't there, and Star Trek. You'll see those in the second half of this video probably anyway, but all those sort of things, and she quite got into it. We got a 3D telly back in probably 2017, 2018, because a friend of ours was selling hers, got a bigger television, so she sold Claire her old television. So we had one of those to watch on, and it was the old static glasses, the ones that you don't need the active shutter on. So it was great to watch. Then we upgraded that to a much bigger television. Then that broke last year, so we had to go and replace that with another one. Trying to find a 3D telly nowadays is impossible because they've stopped putting 3D into televisions, new televisions, about 4 or 5 years ago, when the whole thing just sort of died a death. But as I mentioned before, we have three 3D tellies in the house, just in case one of them does break down. We've got a backup, and eventually when I can be bothered to take that one off the floor, which has been there since December, and put it on there, we'll have one up here as well. So we have 3 at the moment. One's a static, the one down here is an active one, so that means it's going to be powered and it'll do shuttering, and then the other one is also a shuttering on main television. I'm not a big fan of 3D. Mainly because obviously I wear glasses, which is really difficult to put a pair of glasses over the top. You look a bit silly, but also I don't know. I just don't think it. When you were young, when I was young anyway, occasionally they put a 3D film on the telly, but it would be a sort of false 3D. So basically, you were wearing the old paper glasses, the old sweet wrappers over the eyelids, sort of thing, one red, one blue. I think one year, I remember I was very, very young, they did Raiders of the Lost Ark in 3D on ITV, I think it was, and they gave away a free pair of 3D glasses. So basically, a family of 4, you got to pass the 3D glasses around when the 3D effects come on. It was basic stuff, it wasn't made for 3D, it was sort of 3D enhanced, so it's not quite a proper 3D effect. Where some of these films are actually filmed using 3D technology to give you a proper thing, and I've got to take Mrs. Bear's word for it, a lot of these films are fantastic in 3D. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you each one off as we go along. I don't know some of the films. I can't profess to know much about them. The ones I do know about, I'm obviously going to give you a little bit of a Retro Bear insight. And you must remember that my taste in films and Mrs. Bear's taste in films is completely different. She does love science fiction. That's a real sort of crux of her enjoyment in watching films. And I'm not a massive science fiction fan, don't mind it, but it's not my choice. She likes modern films, she likes rubbish films starring Jason Connery and Julian Sands and Patrick Bergin and people like that. She'll have to sit down and watch something with people she's never heard of before, whereas I much prefer to sit down and watch a classic film. I like black and white films that she doesn't. We agree on certain films. We'll sit down and watch films together, but I can guarantee that probably 4 times out of 10 I'll sit there and say, well, that was rubbish, and then she'll sit there and say that was rubbish, or we'll be in complete disagreement. 6 times out of 10 will be relatively good. One of the best experiences I think I ever had was watching Dodgeball as a film, which is my sort of thing. Okay, stupid humour. physical humour, slapstick. I love that sort of stuff. It's what I grew up with. Go and watch some of my previous videos about comedy videos, talking about my enjoyment of certain styles of comedy. And Mrs. Bear hates that film usually, absolutely hates things like that, but she laughed like a drain through Dodgeball. In fact, she laughed more than I did, I think. So it must run in the family, because Mum hates films like Airplane. I was watching Airplane there once, and the Mum was watching this with us, and she goes, "This is just stupid." And I'm like, "What? This is a classic, this is, you know." So you get an idea where we're going from. So, like I said, some of these films I will know something about, some of them I will know nothing about, and I will just give you a synopsis as I go. I'm just going to show you the fronts and backs, not going to open them up or show anything like that at all. Will just go through that. Some of these will have lenticular covers. There we go. Remember that off the bat straight away. Some of these will have cardboard sleeves. Some of these will be nice sets. Some of these will be different ones you may have seen. Some will be standard Blu-rays. But these are all 3D. Most of them come with a copy of the original Blu-ray as well. So you get both choices. So even if we can't watch them in 3D, we can still watch a standard Blu-ray. But if you've got the 3D film, why would you bother? Yeah. And of course we've got PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, you can watch them through. This is always useful to have that, because there were some games in the PlayStation 3 using 3D technology, which I've had a conversation with my good friend James at Retro Import Gamer about. Not many, but there were a few, so we'll go. So let's kick it off first of all with Keanu Reeves in 47 Ronin, which has one of these lovely lenticular covers. There we go. Move that for you. I've not seen it, I don't know anything about it, so I can't tell you. Got some sort of dragon thing there going on. Yes. Keanu Reeves makes an explosive return to action adventure in 47 Ronin. Seize eternity. That's what it says. Anyway, I know nothing about that one. I probably bought most of these. Because it's a great thing to do at Christmas. I'm rapidly running out of options now. Last few Christmases or birthdays, you think, "Oh, can I get it? I'll get her this. I'll get her a few 3Ds. She'll enjoy those," and she does, you know. But like I said, we're running out of options now. I can't remember how many they're listed on various websites. Right, this one's still sealed. Tim Burton presents Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which I caught her watching it in the 2D version. And I asked her, I said, "Any good?" And she went, "Yeah, it's all right actually." So as soon as I saw this in 3D, there's nothing on the back there. I'll pick it up. It's still not been opened, so obviously it's a really good film that she remembers. I distinctly remember Rufus Sewell is in this, and I think I could just about read his name on the back there. God, my eyes are terrible. But yeah, it's got Abraham Lincoln hunting vampires, which of course we know is completely true. What's history told us? He was a president of the United States of America, and he was a member of the Van Helsing family. Yeah. Right. Up next, Tim Burton strikes again. This time in the director's chair. Johnny Depp in Alice in Wonderland. Now, I've got the Wii game of this, I can tell you that, but I think we tried to watch it the one year. I think it was on the telly. And we got about 5-10 minutes in, and we decided it wasn't really for us. But and it's the whole purpose of picking these up again. Most of these have been picked up for very, very little. Don't pay full price for these, apart from a couple. So I think I can remember which one I pay full price for as like gifts. But most of these are sort of like have cost less than £5 usually. And some of them at the moment you can pick up for £1. You can get a cheap. You can find a 3D telly. You can get a lot of these films quite cheaply at the moment. So there we go. Tim Burton's Johnny Depp Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, there we go. We're doing well so far. This one I picked up actually picked up at Christmas. It was on television over Christmas. She does like a good Christmas film. So we've got Arthur Christmas, which has got a very good voice cast. We've got Bill Nighy, Hugh Laurie, etc. If I can remember how many other people are on the back of it. Again, I'm not James McAvoy, Jim Broadbent, Imelda Staunton, lots of British actors providing their voices for it. It's not a bad film. It's a Christmassy film, isn't it? That's what it is. But yeah, so a nice film to watch at Christmas. So again, she has a rotation of films that we watch at Christmas. That's not one of them. But because it's in 3D now, I can see it becoming a staple. Now this one started it all off. Not the best copy actually. I must try and find a better copy. This is what started it all off. This is James Cameron's Avatar, which, yeah, again, sorry, not my sort of thing really. I don't like James Cameron. I don't know what it is. I just don't like him. I'm not saying he's a bad director. I just think he's one of these people. It's like Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick used to take forever to make films. You know, if you look at Kubrick's directorial history, there's like great long gaps of X number of years between films. People talk about him being a great director, but he's like directed about 10 films altogether. James Cameron is exactly the same. I can think of, certainly off the top of my head, first Terminator film, which is a very, very good film. And then you got Titanic, and then you got Avatar. I know I think he did The Abyss as well, but it's like, Terminator 1 was what, 1983, and in the last 40 years he's maybe made 7 or 8 films or something like that. Don't know. Right, we come to the first of many superhero films, because let's face it, if you're going to make Marvel films, you're going to make them in 3D to capitalise on the audience and make a bit more money, aren't you? This is actually a cracking little film, and I can actually say it's one of the films, probably the first one I've actually say I can enjoy. It's the Ant-Man, not the Ant-Man, Ant-Man. That's Paul Rudd, isn't it? Yeah, Paul Rudd. It's also got Michael Douglas in it as well, with his later roles. Very good film, this one, full of... Again, I like the Marvel films if they've got a little bit of humour into them. This one is actually very, very good. Ant-Man and the Wasp, pretty good. Ant-Man in the Quadrophenic Universe, which came recently, terrible. Really, really poor film. I hope they don't make any more Ant-Man, because I think they destroyed it, really. But nice to give Michelle Pfeiffer some late acting roles. She's in the last 2. But yeah, really good film. That's sealed. Obviously, we haven't watched it, but we have seen the film. It's really good. Very well worthwhile tracking down if you haven't come across that one before. I'm a big superhero fan. I used to read all the comics when I was a kid. But I think as we go on, more and more superhero films come out, and I get more and more disenchanted with them. This was great. This is the first Avengers film, Avengers Assemble, with Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and the Hulk. Again, I love what they did with this. Absolutely brilliant. But the problem is with the Avengers films, and indeed the Marvel franchise, I just find if you miss a film, or you've been told to watch a film in a certain order, you've got to watch this to follow that. And if you haven't watched them for a while, I think we had this problem with Infinity War. Because we hadn't seen... it'd been a while since we've seen the previous film and other films in between, we sort of forgotten where the storyline was, and it was a bit difficult to understand it. And maybe I'm getting old, I don't know. But yeah, they're all in this one, and of course we've got the 4 characters on the front, but also Hawkeye's in it, Black Widow as well. And of course, Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Very, very good role for him, plays out brilliantly. The Thor universe is fantastic. I really do love the way that they've done that, because superheroes are on Earth, they are technically normal everyday people like you and I who become superheroes, whereas Thor is actually a Norse god who comes down to Earth in a completely different environment. He's an alien coming to Earth, and his reactions are great. Those Thor films are fantastic. You will see those in the second part, by the way. I'll talk more about those then. So after that one, then it started getting a bit confusing. It's actually got a bit of a crack in the box on the top there, which is rather worrying. This is Avengers Age of Ultron, which I don't know, I just didn't enjoy it. Just couldn't. Don't know what is. Again, pretty much same cast as before. James Spader as Ultron, I think the voice anyway. But yeah, I just didn't enjoy this one as much. Don't know why. Perhaps it was just... I haven't watched these for ages. I mean, Avengers Assembles on the television every 6 months or so. But you don't see Age of Ultron on very often. Then we've got... they call this one Captain America Civil War, haven't they? I've got it probably in the wrong section, but it's a sort of a cross between, it's an Avengers film, but it's not an Avengers film. It's a Captain America film. But all the Avengers are in it because they've sort of split sides. And again, like I said, it's been so long since I remember it. Obviously, there are people out there much more well-versed on this as it is. I profess to be no expert on the superhero films and the superhero universes. Yes, Marvel 1983 to 1990 possibly is my strong point, but definitely not anything like this. But obviously, there's more superheroes are taking sides. So Captain America versus Iron Man and various other superheroes thrown in on different sides. I think that brings in the Scarlet Witch and the Falcon and other people like that. I'm looking at the front cover, trying to remember some characters. Black Panther maybe as well. It's probably in the wrong order because I think it's not a Marvel, it's actually a Captain America film, not an Avengers film. But it sort of sits that bridge after the first two. Then we got this one quite recently, so again, one of these nice slip cases. This is the Avengers Endgame. So I think we're just missing Infinity War now, which is not difficult to find. It's only a few quid as well. But there you go. It's a nice slip case on that one for those of you who like a bit of cardboard. There you go. But again, you know, certainly the first two Avengers films, you could probably pick up all five, or one, two. You could probably pick Avengers, Ultron, this one, and Infinity War for probably about a tenner in 3D. So again, if you've got the opportunity to do that, it's worth picking up. But there we go. So Avengers Endgame. Right, we've moved on from Avengers. We're now on to adaptations of video games, with Michael Fassbender and Jeremy Irons in Assassin's Creed. Which again, it's one of these films where I bought this. I bought this actually during my 2 weeks off work, and I said to Mrs. Bear, "Oh, I bought you this as well." And she goes, "Oh," I said, "You've seen that?" She goes, "Have I?" And I went, "Yes, not that long ago." "Oh, don't remember that." I said, "We didn't think it was very good, but I think it was like £1." So, £1 for Assassin's Creed in 3D. I'm not going to leave that one behind. And I'll just show you a quick inside as well, so how some of these. I mean, some of these discs are pretty basic to look at. There's not a lot of imagination goes into the old disc art, but they are slightly different. So on this side here, you've got the standard Blu Ray version, and then this one on here is a 3D. So just so you've got the difference variation, but you can see there's a logo on it. And it's always worthwhile if you are trying to pick these up, and you do find, like I said, majority of these will come with a copy of the Blu-ray. Just check if you're buying them from places like CEX or Cash Converters or whatever, that they're giving you the right disc, because I've done this before. I bought a copy of one of the games in here, one of the films in here, and I was watching the guy like a hawk behind the counter, and I thought, you've not put the right disc in there, have you? So went out the shop, because there was a queue behind me, got out the shop, opened it up and looked inside. Yeah, you've given me the standard Blu-ray version, I need the 3D version. You've got to be careful with things like that, because sometimes it does happen. Oh, here's a terrible film. Another superhero film, but I don't care much for this particular brand. Batman vs Superman, the Ultimate Edition, which obviously means it's 10 times longer than the normal edition. Bonus of having Wonder Woman, which is the only purpose of having this. Somebody was telling a story the other day on a forum I read quite often, and they were talking about the length of films nowadays, and the fact that, you know, years and years ago, you used to have a film, you'd go and see a film, and there'd be an intermission halfway through. You probably heard, you know, young people, probably heard people talking about it. Oh yeah, back in my day, you know, they used to stop halfway through and somebody come around with an ice cream and all this business. And because some films now, especially talking about DC films, there's a 4-hour cut of Justice League, isn't there, I think, which I've not watched yet, because it's 4 hours long. You know, I've got about games, you know, 20 hours gameplay. Who's got 20 hours to play a bloody game? I haven't got 4 hours to sit down and watch Justice bloody League, have I? Anyway, he went to watch Batman versus Superman, and he said it was done in the old-fashioned way, where they had an intermission halfway through. He thought, great, this is fantastic, and then he realised at the end of the intermission he had to go back and watch the rest of this terrible film. No, I'm not a fan of DC. Full stop. That's not to say I don't think DC, serve purpose. I like the Tim Burton Batman films. They're great films. Never been Superman at all. I just don't get it. He just doesn't inspire me a great deal. I don't know why. And I've always thought that DC probably have like really terrible names for their superheroes. You know, probably things like Birdman and, you know. Yeah, I just think, Aquaman was always the one that makes me laugh. You know, that's the bit. You know, Marvel had the Submariner, and that sounds great. The Submariner, really great name, and the best DC can come up with is like Aquaman, because Waterboy sounded daft. I don't know. I just think I watched the recent Flash film. I've seen that. I saw that while I was on my 2 weeks holiday, because I thought it looked quite good. And obviously, spoilers. Batman comes back. If it's not too soon for news, Batman comes back, and in fact, 2 Batmen come back actually. And I just I don't know. just didn't resonate with me. Didn't make me want to watch what I've tried watching things like watched DC Legends of Tomorrow, the TV series. Thought that was okay, but it just sort of dragged on, and then I lost interest in it. Yeah, I just don't, doesn't grab me. I never read the comic books. I watched the Batman Adam West TV series. Like I said, I watched the Tim Burton films when they came out. Played the video games, but no, sorry, not for me, I'm afraid. It's the way it is. We have Emma Watson in Disney's Beauty and the Beast, which I really thought this one film that Mrs. Bear would not want to watch. Well, she hasn't, because it's still sealed. Now, I think she's watched it on the telly. But again, I think she went through this phase like I do with games. When I started collecting games, I only want to buy the games I want to play. I only want to buy the good games. I want to buy the rubbish. And she said, oh no, I only want to buy the 3D films that I want to buy. And now she pretty much just, if it's in 3D, she's going to get them. So that's it. Yeah, who's in this one? Emma Watson. Other people. Josh Gad, voices mostly, I think. Emma Thompson, Ian McKellen, etc. Anyway, so it's a live action remake of the Disney animated classic. Again, I'm not a huge admirer of Disney doing this with they're taking some of their best animated films and they're turning them into live action remakes. I've got no interest in going to see Mulan as a live action remake, for example. I've got really no interest in watching Beauty and the Beast or The Lion King as a live action, or Aladdin, or even The Little Mermaid. You know, those are animated classics as far as I'm concerned. I want to watch those. I don't want to watch a live action remake. And I don't want to line Disney's pockets, because, you know, that's basically what it is. Another Disney film. I'm sitting here with a Mickey Mouse t-shirt. I'm slagging Disney off and showing you Disney films. Big Hero 6. Which some of you may or may not have heard of before. Very good film, this one. Very good piece of animation. I saw it long time ago. But yeah, that sort of combines superhero 3D and Disney. From the creators of Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen, so you know it's come from good stock. Good film, that one. Definitely worth tracking down. I think it's Japanese orientated. I think those based in Japan, so it draws a lot of that from there. I think anyway. I could be wrong. Back to the superheroes. We've got Captain America, the first of Evans. I'm going to say I think it's Chris Evans. Is it Chris Evans who's Batman? Not Batman. Fuck. We'll start again, shall we? It is Chris Evans, not the DJ, and it is Captain America. Captain America, the First Avenger. Excellent film. Really, really excellent film. So I mean about the basic discard there, terrible, isn't it? But yeah, really, really good film. Really enjoyed that. Again, great balance between action and humour. Some of these superhero films, sometimes, particularly Batman and Superman, found to be a joyless pile of junk. But some of them just have a tendency to be very, very heavy-handed and play for the dramatic, and there's not enough of the humour in there. If you read the comic books, there's a lot of humour in there. And I think Captain America, again, gets that balance like the Thor films and Ant-Man, very well done. We followed up with The Winter Soldier, which I probably didn't enjoy as much as before, as the previous one. But, yeah, there we go. So Captain America, The Winter Soldier. Think there is another Captain America film on the way? People who know more about these things will know more about them than I do. And we haven't finished with the Captain films yet, because we've got another one for you. And this is Captain Marvel. Old Carol Danvers on the front there. Is that Brie Larson? I don't know, possibly. I could be wrong. I don't know. I've not seen it. It's still sealed. And again, actually, I think this is a film that we haven't actually seen full stop. We did have it on Nefarious Means a long time ago, but we never actually got around to watching it. So I actually got nothing. I know actually nothing about this film. There we go. We are working through alphabetical order. You may have realised. We're going to get to about M, I think. M, I think, will be the last one. This one we got fairly recently. This looks like it's one of these promotional ones. Again, it's Tim Burton, and this is Coraline, the girl with buttons for eyes. Now this is a promotional copy, as it says. It says, there we go, right at the very back there. Not for sale, promotional use only. So we do find a couple of these. I've got a couple actually, and this actually is just a 3D version. So this, I'm guessing, has been shipped out to retailers when 3D was a thing, to put in a 3D player and a 3D telly in the shop and demonstrate it. But yeah, creepy old film. This one. It's quite dark. But yeah, definitely. No, I got Panasonic exclusive. There we go. So I'm guessing this has been shipped out with Panasonic equipment or to Panasonic retailers in the past. But yeah, worth having that one. There is a video game for the Wii which I do need, which is quite a pricey little title. That one. I mentioned earlier about watching retail stuff like a hawk and make sure we get the right film. This is the one I was talking about. This is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is one of these lovely lenticular covers. Is this the first one? No, this is the second one, I think. There we go. Great trilogy of films. I've got Dawn. We've got Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War of the Planet of the Apes. Of course, the original trilogy were back in the 60s and 70s with such luminaries as Charlton Heston, Ricardo Montalban, Roddy McDowell, etc. This is a great series, a really, really good reboot. The first one doesn't come in 3D, Rise doesn't come in 3D, but the sequels do. And I think they're absolutely fantastic. They really are great films. Really, really good. I was impressed. Because I usually, I hear remakes or reboots and I'm running for the nearest door, but that actually was one that is one of the best, I think. One of the best. Really, really good. We've got Despicable Me next. Steve Carell voicing the main protagonist. I watched a couple of these actually while we were off because they happened to be on Sky Movies, or Sky Cinema as it's called now. So I'm quite up on the old Minions and the Despicable Me thing, but very, very good film, very, very funny. The Minions, of course, got on to have their own films. There's also the sequel to that one, which is Despicable Me 2, which is, again, we picked these, again, £1 each these were recently, £1 each. Again, very good funny films. Great, again, mix of sort of excitement for children, but also good humour in there as well for the adults. Really, really interesting, really, really good films. As I said, there's been Minions after that, and I think there was 2 Minions films, I think. Gradually, the law of decreasing returns comes into it, but they're always slightly less funny or not as good as the first one. But yeah, I think as certainly the first 2 anyway. Was there a third one? I don't know. There may have been a third one, possibly. But I've seen 4 of in that franchise anyway. Another Marvel film. This is Benedict Cumberbatch, as he's known in this house, as Doctor Strange. Again, bizarre mix of sort of action and humour. I haven't watched the second one yet, I must be honest. Yeah, so Benedict Cumberbatch, Rachel McAdams, Tilda Swinton, there we go, also in that one as well. Yeah, very, again, if it's a superhero I'm invested in, I know a lot about, I can get on board. But Doctor Strange is one of those who I just didn't see any Doctor Strange comics when I was younger. And the big thing for me was the original Secret Wars, which was mid-80s. That was a big thing when I was at school. And he wasn't in that either, because quite a few Marvel characters were heroes and villains were transported to a far-off planet to fight a war against each other. And then some of them didn't go, and Doctor Strange was one of them, so he was never around. I don't think when they did the Secret Wars 2 crossovers either. He may have been in one of those, I can't remember anyway. Right, we've got a TV series here. And this was the special 50th anniversary episode of Doctor Who, of which we're a big fan of in this house. Well, I'm a fan of classic Doctor Who and a lot of the modern stuff, but not so much of the recent stuff. Poor Jodie, she was really treated very badly, wasn't she? If you're a Doctor Who fan, she was a good doctor, but she had some rubbish stories to work with. I sort of went off. I was very into the first series of Christopher Eccleston, very into David Tennant, and Matt Smith again. I thought was a fantastic doctor, but some of the stories were just, why we had to insist on running a series, a story arc all the way through the series, I don't know. This is the 3D special, which was broadcast in cinemas, I think. did the BBC give away glasses or something, or was it available on the BBC 3D channel or something like that? I don't know. Not much to it other than that, but yes, it wasn't too bad. There's a surprise Doctor appearance towards the end as well, which I won't spoil for anybody who hasn't seen it. One of Mrs. Bear's favourite films, Dread. She went to see this in a cinema, I think, and she absolutely loved it. For me, it is too... I don't usually say things about violence in films, but this, I felt like I've been whacked over the head by a sledgehammer a number of times during the course of this. Supremely violent. Again, it's one of these strange films which... Those people who loved it, again, this is comic book 2000 AD, for those of you who don't know, it's an old British comic. There was a Judge Dredd film with Sylvester Stallone in for some reason, God knows why. And what else was I going to say? I can't remember what it was there. Oh, some video games based on that film as well, and other 2000 AD films. There may have been a few Judge Dredd games that I can't remember. But it's one of these films where I'm strangely surprised they never actually did a sequel to it, because those people who really enjoyed this film really rate it, and he's got some tremendous write-ups. But I don't know. For me, it's just too violent. I couldn't enjoy it. A bit too much. I don't mind violence. I think it has its place, but when you feel like you're being battered over the head while watching a film at the same time, I don't know what's going on. Oh, got a lenticular cover to wake you all up with. This is Edge of Tomorrow with Thomas Cruise. Ooh, there we go. Look at that 3D cover. Very, very nice. Again, Mrs. Bear film. She's watched this many a time. I've seen bits of it. I don't hate it. Put it that way. The Cruise Blunt Edge of Tomorrow. There we go. Well, yeah, not bad at all, that one. And I don't think you see that lenticular cover very often. So, Live, Die, Repeat. Yes, I think it's sort of a violent Groundhog Day-ish. Probably can describe that an awful lot better. We picked this one up recently. I have not seen any of these films, so it's from the Harry Potter universe, which I absolutely hate. So you've got this is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I think that's what it's called, isn't it? Where to Find Them. Yeah, it's Harry Potter universe, so I've got absolutely no interest in this at all. But there we go. If that's your thing, that's it. And if that's not enough for you, I can give you the sequel. Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, which again has got one of these lovely slip covers, which probably won't come off. There we go, a lovely slip cover for you there. As you like, the odd bit of cardboard. There we go. Again, I can't tell you anything about that because I haven't seen them. I've got no interest in seeing them. Used to be a running joke in our house, this next film, because Mrs. Bear always swore she'd never seen it, even though she'd seen it a couple of times. It's just need an introduction, does it really? It's Frozen. I mean, who hasn't seen Frozen? There can't be too many people who haven't. Let it go. Sorry, I had to get that one in. But yeah, I mean, it is the ultimate Disney modern classic. There's no doubt about it. Memorable songs, and to be fair, it's a great film. It is a good film. It's on every Christmas now, I think, or 2 or 3 times a year. I've not seen the sequel. Not particularly interested in seeing the sequel. I'm quite happy with that one. But I bought Mrs. Bear this because I was trying to educate her in sort of, films that actually weren't science fiction, from the director of Romeo and Juliet and Moulin Rouge, which means I'm guessing we're talking about Baz Luhrmann. Which is quite surprising because I love both of those films. They've been absolute film buffs. So like Moulin Rouge, when that first came out, I was like all over that. And Romeo and Juliet, I thought, everybody hates like Shakespeare, but I would want to watch that modern remake. So we've got Tobey Maguire, we've got Carey Mulligan, and we've got, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio in The Great Gatsby. Oh, it's called Gatsby, isn't it? Yeah, Gatsby. I can't tell you anything about this, but Mrs. Bear was like most unimpressed when she got this. I think she actually sat down and watched it and quite enjoyed it. Well, yeah, so I must watch that then. Yes, I must have to sit down and watch that. Maybe one day. Like I'll play all these games at some point in the background. Moving swiftly on, this is going to split quite a lot of people. And I'm probably going to annoy quite a lot of people by saying I actually really enjoyed this film, and I think it gets an awful lot of hate, and I think it's drastically undeserved. And this is the female Ghostbusters. which I know so many people hate this film. They won't even acknowledge its existence. Honestly, seriously, wake up. Just treat it as a separate film. Don't even think about it being part of the Ghostbusters universe or whatever you want to call it. It's a decent film. And I must admit, I was very surprised to find this in 3D. Very, very, not one of the easy ones to pick up. Not expensively rare or anything like that. It's just one, like quite a few in here I'm going to come across that I didn't realise there was a 3D version of. And you go, oh, there is actually a 3D version of this one. So, yeah, guess what? There we go. Ghostbusters. It's not as bad as you think it is. Or you want it to be. Honestly. Don't watch it then. Godzilla in 3D. Mrs. Bear absolutely loves Godzilla. She loved the original. Well, say she loved the original film. She loved the 1997 god awful Matthew Broderick film, which I went to the cinema to watch. That was mostly go every week to the cinema. But yeah, she loves this one. I think she's seen King of the Monsters, which she wasn't very impressed with, and then the third film, which was Godzilla vs Kong, which she said wasn't bad. For some reason, there isn't a 3D version of either of those two films, which is really weird. Or there might be one actually of King of the Monsters, but I think she said she didn't want it. She may change her mind on that one now. But definitely, the Godzilla vs Kong, I thought they would do a 3D version for. They haven't. So I'm guessing, given that's a fairly recent film, that's probably one of the last one. You know, there may not be many. They may not do that now. I don't know. Now this is a steelbook. We haven't got many of these, and I think this is what really established Mrs. Bear's love affair with 3D films, because I know she just, as soon as this came out in 3D, she wanted it. And this is George Clooney and Sandra Bullock in Gravity. Golden Globe, BAFTA nominations, Oscar nominations. I'm not sure how many it won. 3 hours of special features in 2D. That's all right. I don't know. Unfortunately, folks, I can't tell you much more than that. But there we go. So Gravity. Anyway. Sorry, I haven't seen that one. Not interested. Not interested. What have we got here? Oh yes, Guardians of the Galaxy. Back to the superheroes. Trilogy of films. Again, I think as they go along, they're not quite as good as the one. I watched the third one again while I was off. I don't know. We know it's the last Guardians film, but just I think they were very surprised by the success of this one. And I know they've appeared in a number of other films and crossovers and what have you. This was great. The second one was, yeah, okay. And then I thought the third one just, I don't know. I'm glad they won't be making any more of them, put it that way. But yeah, Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Batista, WWE Batista. Yeah, honestly, that film is fantastic. We haven't got the second one in 3D, but that's quite still pricey. You're probably paying more than you're paying £6 to £10 for that one. Now these two I got out of where I work, because these are promotional copies, and where I work we're part electrical retailer, so these were given to us to sort of to put on the telly in the shop so people can come in and I thought I'd do them together actually, because they sort of fit together. And I went into the sales manager's office one day, and I said, I'm not sure where that's gone to. Not to worry. I went in and I said, do you need those, Eric? And this was like, I'm going back maybe 3-4 years after the 3D fad had died out. We're not selling 3D tellies anymore. We're not demonstrating 3D anymore. And I said, do you want those? He said, what do you mean? Well, do I want them? I said, well, have you got any need for them? He said, no. I said, well, can I have them? He said, yeah. So we've got Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, where hopefully everybody dies twice in 3D. That would be quite good, wouldn't it? Yeah, so the freebies out of work, though. They were given to us for promotional purposes. You can buy them. They are official releases. You can get those probably in better cases. But yeah, they were just passed on, but they didn't need them at work, so yeah, there you go. Just sitting around clucking at the place. There's no value in them, so they've not lost it. Oh, we've still got the sticker on this one. Must remember to take this sticker off this one. This is Hugo in 3D, which is one of the Martin Scorsese film. Very, very good use of 3D in this one. it's a very different film for Martin Scorsese to make. If you've ever seen Scorsese films, you associate with things like Taxi Driver, Mean Streets, Goodfellas, you know, The Irishman. What's that one with Jack Nicholson in the Departed? That you know, you associate with like heavy drama, very violent films, very sort of social commentary, not something like Hugo, which is a fantastic film. You really need to see it, and the 3D effect is really good. I have seen this one; it's really good, worth picking up as well. And again, I think now, I mean, I think I paid, well, that says Blu Ray £4, but I think you got it for a lot less. Than it's quite a common title, that one. Definitely worth having in your collection. Another Mrs. Bear film, and again, I didn't know this came out in 3D until doing a bit of research about it. This is Will Smith in I, Robot. I didn't know there was a 3D version of this either. You do find these occasionally just crop up and you go, oh, hang on a second, that's in 3D. There we go. Very strange to see it in 3D. But there you go. Good film, that. And it's actually, we've got 2 discs in there. I'll have a quick look at these again. There we go. So there's a 3D version of it. And again, there's the standard, I think that says DVD on there, doesn't it? So I think it's a DVD, Blu Ray 3D, that's it, yeah. There we go. 3D combo pack, 3D Blu Ray, and also has the 2D version of the film on there in Blu Ray, and then there's the DVD as well. So excellent. Yeah, good film, that. Very good. Yeah, Will Smith made some cracking films back in the day. I'm surprised we never got the first one in 3D, but we had the second one in 3D. I watched this the other day, and again, it's like, oh man, it's another one of these films which is very much, you know, it's a sequel to a film which didn't need a sequel, or it's a sequel to a film with very few fresh ideas. And I didn't see the first bit of it. I came into it sort of, not say halfway through, maybe about a third of the way through. And I sort of sat there and thought, this is pretty much the same film to a certain point. Till the end, but yeah. Anyway, it's Independence Day Resurgence. I mean, he just didn't need a sequel. I remember seeing a trailer for this in the cinema for the first one, going, oh, it's going to be brilliant, that, look at that, they've blown up the White House, isn't that going to be fantastic? And then I went to see it and I sort of sat there and thought, this is a pile of crap. I'll sit down and watch it many times. I've watched it many times, but I felt there were so many elements in that sequel in relating to the first film that I thought, well, it's just you know, just laziness. I hate laziness in filmmaking, I really do. There's just so much of it. I will say that this is one of my this film is absolutely fantastic. Inside Out Disney film. What a film this is. I saw this I think it was on the telly. It wasn't when it came on, I think I might have seen it on Sky. And one bit in here absolutely broke me up, it really did. Just an amazing film. Recommend everybody sees this. It's just fantastic. I'm not going to tell you anything about it because you're all going to go and see it. If I told you what it was, you wouldn't bother going and watch it. No, it's about all these different characters on the front end, different emotions. So you've got anger and jealousy and depression and things like that. It's just brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant. Please go. Please see that. Please see it. I wish I could tell you more about it, but I'm not going to. It's a surprise. Can't tell you anything about this one. Insurgent. It's not one of these low budget films which she loves to watch. I'm desperately looking for a name on the back I recognise, but my eyesight is so bad that I can't actually tell you. Well, is that Kate Winslet's name on the back there? Possibly, I don't know. Anyway, I've not seen that one, so I can't tell you anything about it. I don't know. But I know it's one that Mrs. Bear very much enjoyed. Right, we're down to the last 10 or so now, so I'll try and whiz through these as quick as possible. For you, another superhero film. This one is the only one of the 3 that came out in 3D, and this is Iron Man 3. Great. Again, love the first film. Not so much a fan of the second film. This is brilliant. This is completely off the wall. It's got Ben Kingsley in it. It's absolutely brilliant. There's such a twist in that. It's superb. It really did make me laugh and sort of, hang on a second, I've actually given this some good thought. But yeah, so a marked improvement on the second one, which had Mickey Rourke in it. But yeah, as a threesome, they're not bad. A threesome sounds a bit rude. It does sound a bit rude. As a trilogy film, they're pretty good, but the second one isn't so good. The first one is okay. Again, because I knew the sort of characters that Jeff Bridges was playing. This was Jeff Bridges, wasn't it? I sort of knew the background to what went on with that. So I quite enjoyed that one, but the second one I didn't enjoy at all. That one was much better. I can't tell you anything about this one because I've never seen it. This is John Carter. All I know it's a film with a pretty terrible reputation. But Mrs. Bear said it's not that bad. To take her word for it, John Carter. Next up, I did one of these. I didn't realise that this was in 3D. I was so pleased to find it was in 3D. I love this film. Actually, the second one's maybe not quite as good, but as a pair, they're pretty good. This one's definitely the best of the two. This is Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, with The Rock, of course, Dwayne Johnson, Jack Black, Kevin Hart, and Karen Gillan in 3D. Whoa. Yeah. So I was absolutely chuffed to find that in 3D. Does it improve on the Robin Williams original? Yeah, the Robin Williams film is very, very good. I can happily sit down and watch that. I think it's great, holds up really well. That's in terms of, like I said, I don't particularly like reboots and redos, but that's very, very good film. And I was pleased to find it in 3D, which is fantastic. Up next, I don't know much about this one. This has got the Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis in it. And from the creators of the Matrix trilogy, and this is Jupiter Ascending. Again, I know absolutely nothing about this, so I can't tell you. Now, it's one film that you probably need to have in 3D or something like that, or various number of films in 3D. It is Jurassic Park. This is the ultimate film. This is from my era of watching films back then. Went to the cinema when it came out. And this is the 20th anniversary release. They did put it back in the cinema with the 3D effect in it. And I remember talking to a mate of mine and said, "Oh, we'll go and see that." We never did. And the reason he said that was because I think when the first one came out, he watched it in Great Yarmouth on a cinema screen the size of a small television, pretty much like this little thing I've got here. But yeah, it's that film you got to see. When I saw it back then in the cinema, it was the loudest film I've ever heard in my entire life. But yeah, something like that needs to be redone in 3D. And Mrs. Bear's in it, and she said it's brilliant in 3D. I haven't watched it in 3D because I think she watched it when her mum was here while I was at work. That's fine, I don't mind. But yeah, just absolutely brilliant. The problem is, it led to we need to make more. So we've got Jurassic World with a lenticular cover. Thank you, Dana. But again, this is very much the same. It's all the greatest hits of the first three films. And I just don't see the point in making films like this where you're not going to put any originality back into them. And it just feels like a retread of what's gone before. Just, as they did re-release the first one. And then you get this one, which is even more law of diminishing returns. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Which I think when it was first shown on telly, was shown at 4:30 in the afternoon on ITV. I know because we watched it. It was only a couple of years back. But again, this is just like retreading bits of the first film. The first three films. And Mrs. Bear's watched Dominion. She had it on. I was in the background. I was watching something else on my tablet. I've got no interest in watching them. Like I said, the original trilogy, the first one was fantastic. The second one was great until somebody had this really stupid idea halfway through. Somebody must have dropped dead working on that film. And somebody had to pick up the script writing afterwards and say, yeah, let's move everything to San Diego. Really? Okay. And then the third one, again, just seemed to be, I don't know, as if the budget had been cut slightly. It's not a bad film, but compared to the two, it's not great. And I'm hoping that next sort of trilogy of three that they've done You've got the original trilogy, and these three won't be any more. Leave them alone now. Finished, done. But those are the sort of films that you want to get in 3D. You know what I mean? We've now got another monster creature film, Kong's Skull Island, which I haven't seen in 3D, but I have seen the 2D version. And yeah, it's all right if you like that sort of thing. I don't particularly. I think I've sort of moved on a bit from there. But it's not bad. It's not bad. Again, there have been worse films I've seen. Now this one is one which I really enjoyed. I think I've seen it. Mad Max Fury Road in 3D. I understand I think there's another one on the way. Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, but a lot of people do regard this as being quite good. Again, the original trilogy films with Mel Gibson in, the first two were very low budget, independent films made in Australia, and the third one, of course, had Tina Turner in it. We don't need another hero. Well, why be turned up then? Go away. Again, never really got into those films at all. But that's not bad. That's not bad at all, that one. We mentioned Superman earlier. We had the Man of Steel with also one of these lenticular covers. There we go. Ooh. Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill as Superman. Henry Cavill as Herman Munster. That might not be Henry Cavill, I don't know, but again, Superman films, the first one, I don't know, it just seemed to be, I know everyone sort of banged on about it, or friends of mine saying, oh, when I saw something it was great, and I was like, it just seemed like a very soft focus, this whole business, you believe a man can fly, I just didn't find it believable. I just didn't enjoy it a great deal at all. The second one, much better, but that's because they nearly killed Superman, so that's fine. And I remember watching the third one with Richard Pryor as the sort of the guest star of the week, but somebody who's been brought in to try and boost the revenue at the cinema. And only because I think we probably rented it out because we'd seen Richard Pryor and Brewster's Millions the week before or something. And yeah, and then you had obviously Superman Quest for Peace and Fortune, I never even saw, which is so low budget, it was unbelievable. But I wasn't even really interested in Superman anyway. Then you had the reboot film with Kevin Spacey, we can say that name now, can't we, as Lex Luthor. Bryan Singer who was a director on that one, who did the X-Men films, possibly. Again, I'm just shooting off the top of my head here. Dreadful film, horribly, depressingly dull film. How do you make a Superman film dull? Is it Superman Returns, I think it was? Terrible film. I've got the PlayStation 2 game out, I must throw it away without even playing it. Just depressing, because the Superman theme and the love song of the original film, which I kept reprising, seemed like I playing it every 30 seconds in that film, which is that bloody song again. So I've never really watched that one, and I've got no intention of doing so. Just, don't know. 2 to go. Men in Black 3. Did you know there's a Men in Black 3? I didn't. Apparently there is. Again, loved the first one, hated the second one, and I think I've seen this one. It's okay, but again, it's that law of diminishing returns. Why did it need 3 sequels? Why do we need 2 sequels? Why do we need 3 films? Speaking of that, there's another film here. It's the last one I'm going to show you, because we've reached M, which I think is the last letter of the alphabet for this particular section anyway. That's worked out quite well, hasn't it? And we've got Minions again. Hey, with a lenticular cover. There we go. Kevin and the gang. It's quite good, that one. Kevin, Stuart, Bob. That's a really good film, actually. I watched that one for the first time 2 weeks ago. Very, very good. And again, won't cost you much. That is part 1. That is part 1. Let me know what you think. Have you seen many of those films? Have you seen them in 3D? Have you any interest in 3D films? Is this sparking an interest in 3D films? Have you seen the 2D versions? Have you read the books? I don't know. Talk to me. Let me know what you think. We've got the second half to do. That'll probably be along in a few videos time. I'll try and space it there with some gaming stuff for the regular viewers. But if you just come across this the first time, There are other things, like I said, I've done Blu Ray collections, I've gone through VHS, I've done wrestling VHS, I've done CDs and tapes and things. There is a bit of that media in there other than the games. It's not all about the games here on this channel. That is the main focus of it, but we do other things as well. There's even a soldering video. I do some soldering. You haven't seen that one before, go back and have a look at it. You know what to do. It's there if you want to do it. There's no obligation to at all. If you'd like to, that'd be fantastic. It's always really appreciated, and like I said, comments are great. I love getting comments because it's interaction, and I like doing that, like hearing what people think about the video, what I'm showing off, and their thoughts and processes. In the meantime, until I get round to filming the second part, I'll see you again soon on the next video. Meanwhile, take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.